Hello all, thank you for coming back to our channel. This is the second in the series about our flow frames, or should I say the original flow frame from Australia and the Chinese auto frame. So what we are going to now do is prep these. What you will see a bit later in the video is I mentioned previously that a lot of the caps and the ends that sort of come out at the end of the flow, where the honey will flow out originally, and the end, so I think it's a cap, the end that goes on here, which is where you put the key into, those get lost in some video quite a lot. So what I've done, and what you will see in the next part of this video a bit later on, is just how I've just spray painted those, just to make sure that if they do get dropped on the ground, we'll be able to find them quite quickly. So that's just a little tip. So what I want to do today is actually prepare these. Now these do come just with the plastic, the food grade plastic, both of these. Now, but what they don't do is have any wax in, and quite a few beekeepers have found previously that their bees do not actually sort of take and use the flow frames very readily, and others say they do, but only if you wax them. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to wax them. I've seen a number of different ways that are available that various people, beekeepers, use when they do actually do their flow type frames and prepare them for the bees before they go into the hive. I'm just going to show you my way. Might be a better way, it's just the way I've chosen to do this. Now all I've got here is, first of all, just some melted wax, melted under low temperature, so not too hot. And what we're just going to do is put some of that in these. Now the reason why, and the main reason why they do not have any wax on these and come pre-treated, is because these frames are sold all around the world, and all different food standards or agricultural standards that are would be required if this had wax on. And to be honest, I think you also want to use local or your own beeswax yourself anyway. So if you haven't got any beeswax yourself, contact your local beekeeping association or other beekeepers you know in the area. Ask if you can buy or have some free wax and use that. But if not, over time and later on the season, you'll hopefully see me making some wax or melting and cleaning the wax, because it is dirty wax. If it's your own wax, you do want to clean it first before you use it for this purpose. So that's what I've done. I have actually cleaned, this is clean wax. So what I'm going to do now is just literally treat. So going to do it exactly the same way for both the auto flow frames and this, the original flow frame from Australia. And all I'm going to do, quite simply, is get the wax in a brush. I would also say, and all I'm doing is going vertically into there. Now the bees will tidy that up. Now prior to doing this, I did actually sort of make sure all of the cells are lined up. So I used the key and lined up all the cells, so they should be in the what I'm calling the closed position, so that the bees can do their work without having to sort of, or if I didn't and I had to set these before, it might crack a lot of the wax that we're putting in now. Now whatever I'm doing now is not going to be perfect for the bees. What they will do, however, is take this, they will probably discard a lot of the wax that is actually in here. But because this is a sort of wax, proper beeswax, and only pure beeswax, then they'll hopefully more readily take this. Now I did should I put one or two frames in that haven't been waxed, but I think I just believe it's going to be better that we do just wax all of these frames. So that's what I'm just going to do. I'm not going to do any other experimenting. Shouldn't I wax the frames? There's enough other people who have tried that, and it does seem to be even people in the same apiary, or beekeepers with their hives in the same apiary. Some hives will take it. So I think it's very much down to the individual bees for each colony whether they would or won't take this. Might also be there's some evidence that different times of the year they are more readily sort of used or taken up and to be used by the bees than other times of the year. So that's it on one side. Quickly flip it over, do the same on the other side. So all I'm going to say is we're going to give this a go. See, this is all part of the experiment, but what we're trying to do, the key part of this is will the bees use the flow frames or auto flow frames? I am going to, and next video that I will do, you'll see me actually using these. And what I've decided to do is stagger the frames. So what I'm going to do in the first hive, because there's 7 of each frames, and I can only put 7 into the colony, the maximum I can do is obviously there's going to be 4 of one, 3 of the other. So in this hive, what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm actually going to start it by doing 4 of the flow frames, the Australian original flow frames, and 3 of the auto frames. That means that the next hive, when I start opening that up and putting in flow frames, that will be the other way round. There will be 4 of the auto frames and 3 of the Australian flow frames. But what I'm going to do in that case as well, because with this one it will be, if I can say, flow, auto flow, flow, auto flow, flow, auto flow, flow. So we start at the both ends will end up being Australian flow frame. So they will be the first ones that will be in contact with the brood, if you can call it that. So going forward, what I want to do to try and make it as even as possible, I will still start with the Australian flow frame and just do it as a comparator, because that's what we're trying to do, is do a comparator against these. Now, one of the key things it does mean is that in the second hive that I use this, it will actually be at the end 2 water flows, because we'll have flow, water flow, flow, water flow, flow, water flow, water flow. So, but we can't do anything because of the odd number of frames. So if I have a look at that now, so maybe if I do a quick comparator, so that's before and that's after. You can see the color has actually changed purely because of beeswax that has gone on. It also seems more pronounced, the edges of the cells. You can see this one haven't actually leveled it all up on all of them, but you can see they're thicker, and that's because of the wax that's on the actual sides and the edges. But what I want to do is try and get the wax inside, which is why I do the vertical motion. I have seen some people literally just brushing it on. My reason why I chose not to do that was you're probably going to get clogs of wax on some of the edges as you're brushing it across. And so one side, my side, if I was brushing this way, would have lots of wax, but the other side wouldn't have much wax. I've seen it up and down, but the main way, which I just feel gets wax into the middle, is to actually do it like that. Now, I didn't actually time that, so I'm going to do it with one of these auto flow frames as well. So if I were to, I'll put on in the video how long this actually takes. I don't think it will take any difference in the time between the two types of frames. They are just cells that I'm banging a brush into effectively with some wax on. But it's not something I would rush. This is something that you should only need to do the once when you get any of these flow type frames, and because after that the bees will just look after themselves. It's not something you have to do each season. Once you've actually drained the frames, I just see some bees around us now because I can smell the wax, which isn't really too surprising. And as the hives are literally about 20 meters away, so putting it into about 60 to 70 feet away, it's not surprising they're probably going to smell this wax and want to come over and explore. So it's actually quite relaxing doing this. It's not going to take long. In this case I've got 14 frames to do this on. I've got a fair bit of wax, so I'll keep going until I ever run out of wax and I've done all 14 frames. The wax, as you would expect, cools and I won't say, some people say dry, but cools and hardens relatively quickly, because it is at room temperature in here. In the actual pan, again, probably for your family's sanctum, shall we say, and not causing any issues, do what I do is I have, first of all, a brush that I do not use and I will not use for any painting or DIY, do it yourself. That means, you know, any jobs around the house. I will use it solely for keeping it for some reasons to do with beekeeping. If you do want to clean the brush, the easiest way of doing that is with boiling water, and that will sort of melt the wax, because at the end of this you will get wax, obviously they're in globules or sticking on the brush, so you might want to get rid of it. It also means there's less chance of attracting, in the UK we have problems with wax moth, and so I don't want to really attract sort of potential pestilence or towards us here. So the way I'm going to do that is just to make sure I clean simple things like the brushes, and that's just good hygiene. Using the boiling water, I know we're using hot wax, though it's probably nowhere near the temperature of boiling water, because we're just gently melting the wax to get it to this position so we can actually use it. What it does mean, however, is by using the boiling water, it will melt the wax that we do actually have here, so you can get rid of that off the brushes. It will also means you'll be able to know that it's actually been cleaned quite well from a sterilisation perspective. So nearly there. So if I was here with my stopwatch, I'll be getting ready to do it. Just have a look. There we are. Done. So we can stop it. Okay, so there we are. Again, you can see it's quite thick, the cells. This one also, I realised I didn't actually straighten, so I will have to straighten this out so that the cells are in the closed position. I can see they're actually in the open position right now. But it didn't take long to do at all. And well, that's all I want to show you of how I'm preparing these. And we'll obviously put the caps and the ends in, in these, and then we'll be able to use those and put them into the hive. So I'm calling it the flow frames. Of course, I'm using the Australian flow frames, the original ones, as well as the auto frames from China. Got them both here. I'll show you a couple of pictures of them a bit close up. So you can see the two different colours on the ends for the caps, which I've sprayed. So I'm going to put them in to this hive here. This is the colony that actually swarmed a few weeks, or just over a month ago. She's done a fantastic job, even though I've taken a few sort of brood frames out of there and put them into this hive over here, which is going to be the comb one, which has had a few of the little issues at the moment, and we found that a queen all by herself. They seem to be doing okay. I'm not going to do an update on that because that was only 4 days ago, but this colony is growing nicely and strongly. It is a Sunday, the 22nd of May in 2022. It's been a lovely, glorious day. It's been about 22 degrees centigrade, 73, 74 degrees Fahrenheit today. Lovely, lovely weather for the bees. We've had rain over the last few days, so there is nectar flowing quite nicely outside there. So as I mentioned, we're going to be putting in the flow frames here. I'm going to do a very quick inspection. I probably won't even be putting that on the video. But what I want to do is just do a quick run through there, make sure I can find the queen. The reason why I want to do that in this is I want to make sure she doesn't come over onto this side. And as a reminder, one of the things that we do have in these is queen excluders. So reason why I'm going to put a queen excluder in, which some people say you don't need for long hives or top bar hives, which is the same but without the foundation in, let the bees build out the wax themselves completely. The reason why I'm doing this is I really do not want to have a brood in these frames. So I will be putting in the queen excluder, and I just want to make sure she is on that side of the hive. So I'm going to just make sure by just doing a quick inspection, put that in, and then we're going to put in these frames, and that's going to be yellow, pink, yellow, pink, yellow, pink, ending on the yellow again, and let's hope that they will take them to them quite nicely. So that's all I want to do for this bit, and let's dive in and have a look at how we put these frames in. So we first start, as always, remove it, take this out. But now, because the bees have historically been here and we've always had a end board in this frame, I'm no longer going to need that. So I am going to just take this out, just make sure the queen is not on there. She isn't. I will just put that on the side. Unlike other occasions, I don't really need to put this board on there. I've decided I'm not going to actually go through this. What I will, however, say is this last frame that they're working on, when I'm having a look here, if I do bring it over quickly, you will be able to see that it's, you know, they are still drawing it out nicely, so they've got space to work, but I can see that's all been backfilled with honey. So what I would rather do is not do that and keep that space. So move that there and keep that space for brood. So what I want to do is put these in. Now again, with this hive, because it is a flow hive, this section comes off, because when we put this in, we want the caps. That's where the caps come through. So I'm just going to take that out for now. But before I do that, as I mentioned before, is we've got to put in the queen excluder. Very nicely made, Dean. So put that in. It is just gone 8 o'clock in the evening now. So it's not surprising at this time. The bees are beginning to wind down, and just make sure they're all nicely up there. And I'm just literally going to stagger these frames as part of our test to see which ones the bees do prefer. We will have to be conscious of the fact that what the they have actually done. Oh, this isn't quite fitting in. How interesting. What does that say? That the auto frame isn't actually fitting in, and I don't really want to force those. Well, that says one thing about the size, the dimensions. Maybe a bit further on. No, it's still not going in. Right. Maybe we'll have to just revert to auto flow frames. So there's a big plus point. The flow frame guys have actually made them the correct dimensions. They've been a bit more meticulous by the looks of it. So as you can see, that just dropped out. Quick and easy to find that, so I can put it back in. So those are the 4 that I was going to put in. There's space for 3 more, which was going to be the auto frames. They're not actually here, so I'm going to have to just go and pause and go grab the other ones. Right then, I've got 3 more, so we're going to put those in here. Just making sure. So unfortunately, what we were hoping to do, which was obviously going to be staggering these to see if there was actually a preference, we probably will not be able to do. Let's check this. This is the last frame. Here we are. They fit very nicely. So Dean and Matt from Hyde Hives, very well made as far as the dimensions. Those fit in absolutely snugly. Now, one of the things that the frames do have is a pin at the end, or a screw that we can open up to make sure these are nice and firm. But all of them fit absolutely snugly. I don't have to go and lengthen these screws to actually get them to fit in. They do so automatically very, very nicely. So I am going to leave those here. We're going to, hopefully next time we open up, we're actually going to see bees on top of us, because having put that back on top, this is now going to become, and is now, a flow hive. For the first time in our apiary, we've now got bees, or we will have bees across the whole of one whole colony. So put that underneath it, and there we are. We now have a flow hive. Okay, now that we put the frames in, obviously close the door or the roof. There we are. So if we take those out, we can see all of the frames there, just as we would want them to be. So I'm looking forward to seeing signs of bees and also the honey and or nectar over time. You can see here some of the wax, if I can bring it in even closer. You can see some wax from what I've actually done for treating these frames, and so we'll hopefully now be able to have some excitement when the bees decide to use them. But it looks really neat, and with a yellow that I've spray painted, really does stand out, doesn't it? So quite nice. Again, nicely made by Dean with the phenolic ply on the outside. And there we are. There we are. Clicks in nicely. Just to make sure it does stay there. Well, there we are. A short video just to show you of us putting the frames in. The flow frames. So these are the Australian flow frames. We weren't able to get any of these auto frames in because they look to be a bit bigger than the other frames. So they're not a standard Langstroth, even though they state that they are a Langstroth side. So I will probably be having a word with him to find out what do we do. I can't exactly just build out the frames on here. I'll just check on this side while I'm at it, just see maybe the dimensions, Dean, aren't quite the same. I would have to say I'd be surprised with your marksmanship, or craftsmanship, should I say. And one thing I didn't show you was at the underneath, so just underneath the frames. Because when we put the frames in and when you start drawing the honey out, afterwards this tray is in here so that any excess honey will drip in here when it's only a little bit, and then from there they will then be, the bees will be able to sort of just mop it up and go and put it back into the frames. So there we are. So we got one of those in each of these. So let's go back and just see, does this actually fit in here? No, it doesn't. It's quite a big difference actually, and I do not want to be forcing these in. Absolutely not. Not as if they've got the adjustments which the flow frames have that you can put in here. So I can't actually adjust these at all. Well, it looks like it's about 1/8 of an inch. By that I mean 2 millimeters. That's all. But it's 2 millimeters too much. Okay, never mind. Wait and see, and we'll find out what we're going to do with these. If you enjoyed this very short episode, please do subscribe, tick that bell, and also give us a thumbs up. Thank you, and enjoy your beekeeping.